Can anyone online hear us right now?
I can now.
Man, okay.
I couldn't until then.
Well, thank you for letting us know now. Seth, how should we proceed with this?
We need to go back and take the vote again and then recap what we've done so far.
Okay, so if you want to go back to, because the only vote we've done to this point is for the minutes. So if we can go back and get a motion and a second and then take the vote on the minutes again, and then I'll briefly recap where we are and then we'll get back into it.
And to clarify, that's to make sure there's been no open meetings violation.
So
Very good. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes pass.
okay, so now we're going to get back into it. Everyone that is online, apologize. It appears that you have not been able to hear us up to this point for the board meeting. Just to give everyone a brief summary of where we're at. We recognize Mr. Greg Moody as the new board chairman of the Water and Wastewater Financing Board. You just heard the vote on approving the minutes from the last WWFB meeting, and I briefly explained the board cases that are currently open under the Water and Wastewater Financing Board. We moved on to the water loss violations, in which I just described that through the submissions of the annual information report, we determined which entities are out of compliance with the water loss requirements in Tennessee. And I explained that we're going to be sending the following order to, if it's approved by the board, to the entities requesting an update to board staff regarding the plan to address the water loss from the entities that are listed therein. I do believe that Mr. Kenny Baird from La Follette Utilities is online and would like to address the board regarding his water loss. If you would like to unmute yourself at this point and address the board, as long as the board is amenable to hearing from Mr. Baird.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. No issues.
Okay, well, first of all, this is the first time I've had the pleasure of meeting you folks, obviously not face to face since we're in a WebEx type meeting or a Teams type meeting, but I thank you all for your service. And I've had some discussions with Mr. Drexel Heidel there about this, but when the annual information return came out this year, there was no place in that to account for water loss, or I'm sorry, flushing. We have a system that has over 10,000 customers, 377 miles of line. And we have from our water plant to the end of our system, our model shows it takes 14 days for a molecule of water to get from one end of the system to the other. So we've got a pretty big system. So if you discount flushing, our loss comes in around 34%, which is well under the 40%. Had we had an opportunity to include that information in the annual information report, you may have still wanted to look at us, but you would have been able to see that this is what we produced at the plant, this is what we flushed to be able to keep our chlorine residuals up, and this is the actual amount of water loss. So, I mean, I understand, I've had several conversations with Mr. Johnson and Mr. Colonna about this, but it's something that I think the state should take a hard look at, is being able to see that number on this annual information return also. We've done things, and I'm sure I'll be getting a letter from you folks, and we've done things. We've hired Rye Engineering to come in on a systematic basis and do water loss audits for us, and that's an ongoing type thing. We have 2 or 3 big projects where we're going to replace some of our old galvanized line with 12-inch PVC, I think we're doing all the right things. But I just wanted to address the board and throw that out there as a possibility on the annual information return next year to be able to have an area where we could put flushing in. So if anyone has any questions for me, that's just my remarks regarding our water loss, because if you take the flushing out, we're well below the 40%.
Anyone on the board have anything they'd like to address with Mr. Baird? Mr. Ham?
This is Eugene Hampton. So you want to take consideration for flushing? So if, how much, so like if you went back and looked at previous years, how material is flushing to your water loss plan?
It's,
30% still seems like a large percentage, even if you take out flushing.
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I guess where I get confused, and our loss has come down some. We did find one large leak this year under a state road that had not come up. And when we fixed that, I believe that it started to reflect in our score. But we're flushing, you know, was it 97 million gallons, 100 million gallons a year or something like that? So that still takes us down. I mean, and I will acknowledge the fact that our loss has gone up over the past few years, but we believe that that is because of that one large leak. But we're not just discounting that as being the only issue we have. And that's the reason we've employed the services of Rye Engineering to come in and do a systematic leak detection survey. And it's going to be an ongoing thing. It's kind of, we're in the power business too, and the sewer business. So it's like tree trimming. It's a job you're always going to be doing. You're always looking for leaks to make sure your system is tight. Same way with sewer, you're always looking for inflow and infiltration and ways to abate that. So, I mean, I don't disagree with what you say, but even looking at the numbers that, you know, with the 40%, if you discount the flushing, you're still, you know, well under the 40%. I think we're doing the right things. And then when we get our letter from you all, we will detail that and give you all the firm details of what we're planning to do.
Red wine?
Yes, question. Does the staff have any information about the volume of water or the average losses statewide due to flushing?
So no, right now we don't. We can get you a number though. We can utilize prior submissions of the AWWA information from when it was required in the audit. It's kind of difficult because it depends on what kind of system you have. But you know, we could determine what the average is.
Yeah, surface water systems have to flush a lot more. It's because of disinfection byproduct.
I would be concerned about, you know, the impact statewide if we allow flushing to be considered in water loss considerations. I would not be in favor of that.
I agree. The 40% is just to decide who needs to do the AWWA software. They're not being brought before the board because of the 40%. It's just a matter of, okay, these need to do a further, and AWWA does take into account flushing.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be
I'd
double counted.
rather leave,
Yeah.
I'd rather leave it alone.
As board staff, I would agree. We don't see a need to change it. If we were to make a change, what I would be amenable to is to add flushing, but then decrease the 40%, which really wouldn't serve a purpose, because if you take out whatever amount of flushing and you decrease the number, you'd still end up with the same
I
referral.
like the simple 40%.
I agree.
And then if they are above 40%, they have to do the AW.
And if I may, the biggest issue I have with flushing is not necessarily discounting that, but it's unmetered flow. And so it's dependent upon the operator's estimation on how much water is used. And that there's subject to some adding of the number, if you will, if it's not metered. And that's the biggest concern I've got with it.
Mr. Redmond?
Could we need a motion not to allow flushing to be counted, or is it already that's the practice and we need a motion to change it?
Yeah, there wouldn't be any motion there. Well, Mr. Baird, really appreciate your comments. It doesn't look like there are any more from the board. So really appreciate you being here and addressing the board and all of your comments. So board, right now, what we're looking for would be a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendations to send that order to all the listed entities for the water loss, and then a vote following.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations for the entities that have been referred to for excessive water loss. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you,
Ross,
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back into it. We are now going to move through some of our financial distress cases, starting on page 13 with the town of Brighton. So Brighton is an interesting case because they've had a significant history with delinquent audits, which has made it fairly difficult to work with a utility because there's no audited financial data to understand really where they're at. So at this board meeting, I've kind of made it a point to include a lot of the entities that have had issues with delinquency. And rather than just kind of kicking the can and waiting, I'd prefer to get orders out the door for them to engage with someone to get a rate study completed, and then we can work with them from there, rather than just kind of waiting for them to catch up on their timeline. So with that being said, the staff recommendation that's being offered for the town of Brighton is the board should order the entity shall have the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts or another qualified expert as approved by board staff to perform a rate study that includes a review of the capitalization policy, debt management policy, creation of a 5-year capital asset budget, a review of their utility fees, verification that all of their board members are in compliance with the training requirements, and a review of their leak adjustment policy. And then the deadlines that we're going to be seeing today are by January 31st. They have to send us a copy of the contract for the engagement to complete the work as described in paragraph 1. And then by July 31st, that's when we have to get that completed rate study back. Further, with Brighton, board staff is given the authority for one extension of up to 6 months upon a failure of good cause of the utility. And should the entity fail to comply with any directive of the order, board staff and council shall, with the full authority of the board, issue subpoenas for the entity's governing body manager to appear in person before the board during its next meeting following non-compliance with this order. We find this necessary in certain cases, especially in the instances of delinquency for audits. We want to make sure that people really understand how serious it is, the financial success of utilities. And so we want to make sure that all the towns in which that recommendation is being offered will have the opportunity to come in front of the board to explain why they don't really think it's necessary to get into compliance with the financial standards of Tennessee. So with that, any questions?
I was going to move to accept the staff recommendation, but allowing only 3 months extension for training.
Any opposition to that?
I'll second it.
So to clarify, Mr. Redwine changed the extension allowance from 6 months to 3 months for the town of Brighton. Now, everybody.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and seconded to accept staff recommendations with the caveat of allowing 3 months instead of 6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, thank you, board. Now we're going to move to page 15, the town of Bulls Gap. This is one of our more normal financial distress cases in that the entity was referred for financial distress. We sent them the questionnaire. They returned the questionnaire, and it really just seems like they have a big project going on, and they're just trying to, get their feet under them as they're working to expand their sewer system. So with that, the following recommendation is for a rate study that includes the policies and review of other things as listed, and then the same deadlines as previously discussed with Brighton.
I make a motion to accept the recommendation.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations for the town of Pools Gap. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, moving on to page 23. This is the town of Cumberland Gap. So with Cumberland Gap, there's actually kind of an interesting one. We released Cumberland Gap in 2019. They were previously a case as well, and now they're back under us. typically doesn't happen, so there's a whole bunch of questions as to why. Regardless, they're back in front of us for financial distress, and they definitely need to take care of some of their financial issues. So with the recommendations as listed, the same deadlines as listed, along with the extension of up to 6 months in the instance of the whoever's contracted to do the work is unable to get the work done due to workloads or anything like that. With that being said, are there any questions from the board? Mr. Redwood?
Is there any potential for consolidation of this utility with another?
So it's interesting that you bring that up. That is one of the questions as listed, I believe, in the questionnaire. They say that there's a question in the questionnaire that says, is it feasible for this utility to regionalize, merge, or consolidate with surrounding utility to improve water service to its current or future customer base? In the opinion of the town, it is not feasible at this time. I am not aware enough of that area to say one way or another. If you would like, we can include as part of that rate study some sort of summary as to what potential options would be for that, if you're comfortable with that.
Given that this is a repeat case, it seems to make some sense.
I think we would need a motion to add that to the staff recommendation that we can adopt.
I'll move we accept the staff recommendation with the additional proviso that utility be required to report to the board on potential consolidation candidates.
Commissioner, could we roll that into could we roll that into paragraph 1 and have the TAUD study examine that issue? Can we roll that into paragraph 1 of the staff recommendations and include that in the TAUD study?
Maybe the second there.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the staff recommendations for Cumberland Gap with the additional of having the TAUD study the possibility of consolidation. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, moving right along to, we are now on page 38 for the City of Friendship. So the mayor of Friendship is actually online and he would like to address the board. So I'll start by giving a brief staff summary and then letting him address the board, and then we'll move into the staff recommendation to answer questions. So the City of Friendship, for those that have been on the board for quite some time, probably remember this as a repeat case with the Water and Wastewater Financing Board. There are several issues with honestly both the water and sewer system, whereas the water might be the more prevalent issue that they need to try to find a solution for. While the sewer fund is the one that is financially distressed, they have severe water issues that they need to take care of. So there was a sustainability pilot assessment done several years ago by TAUD and USDA as kind of a joint pilot program. And there was a recommendation from that study that suggested Friendship should hook onto countywide utility district to supply water. That has not been able to be accomplished due to legal issues. I don't want to get into the weeds on all of that to give an opportunity for the mayor to address the board. Should y'all have any questions, feel free to direct them to us or the mayor, however needed.
I thought all their sewage was going to Dyersburg. Is that still true?
I
I didn't
believe
think they
that's
had a
the
sewer
case.
plant.
I believe that's it, but they still have a sewer fund, and that's what is financially distressed. Just the way that the accounting works. So at this point, Mayor Burnett, I welcome you to unmute yourself and address the board.
Can you hear me yet?
Yeah, we can. No problem at all. Loud and clear.
Okay. Try to make a long story real short. We had a VOC contaminant hit our water system in 2016. At the time, we were purchasing water from a private company, and then we were treating it for iron and stuff and selling it to our customers. And as an emergency measure, we dug 2 new wells at our water plant, which is only 1,100 feet from where the wells were that got contaminated. And since then, EPA has been there, TDEC, they drilled holes all over town and did a what they call a gas something survey, trying to figure out where the contaminant was. And they won't in writing give us an estimate of when they think it will reach the wells that we're using now. But they were all in agreement that it would just, me talking to them, that it would be within 2 to 10 years. And we're several years into this now, and we're scared to death of it. And the state's making us test like crazy. I mean, and it's expensive. Now, they come in and did a rate study, and there was a mix-up with them and our auditors. And most of the depreciation on our stuff is pipes and manholes and all. And our systems, both the water and sewer, are relatively new. Their sewer system went in the 80s, and we completely revamped the water system during the 90s. And we, they were depreciating the lines and stuff on 15 years instead of 50. So when we got that straightened out, right, that we didn't look near as bad on paper. But they suggested 3 major rate increases. And the first one we did was we went up $2 per thousand on the water that's used over the limit. And that's got it way up there. We're charging $9 per thousand over the limit now. And we, this past January, we went up $16 per month on the minimum bill for water and sewer. And we've already got approved another $16 per month increase this coming January. Now that was calculated to take care of our problem when the depreciation figures were too big. But we're going on with those increases because we've got to do something about this water situation we're in. We know it's almost a sure thing this contaminant is going to come back and get us again. So they've come up with some cost estimates for us to put in a new water plant that will be almost 3 miles north of where we are now. And the engineers and all think that will be far enough away from the tetrachloroethylene that we shouldn't have a problem with it. At that site, we already have a sewer main to take care of the backflow water from the plant. And there's already 3-phase electricity there, which is hard to find. We're in a rural area where 3-phase current's not everywhere, and we sure don't have sewer everywhere to take care of the backwash water. But we get out there, and it's also the way the water flows under us here in West Tennessee. The contaminant would have to go 3 miles upstream to get to us. So we feel like this is safe for decades to come. And the TDEC money that we were allotted was $600 and some odd thousand. And the cost estimate for the new plant, new wells and all that is $1.8 million. And we're in Crockett County, and we're a real small rural county, but we have 5 municipalities in it. And the county is not in utility business. So they split that money up that the county was allotted from TDEC on that federal money. And they gave us more than anybody else because of our problem. And they're going to give us 1.2 million to go along with the money that we have. And we're engineers are relatively sure we won't have to borrow any money. We'll have the money to build the plant. Now, what I'm asking is, I'd like to go ahead to do this because we won't have to borrow any money to do it. It's the cheapest way to go. And we've already got those rate increases approved. In fact, we've already done 2 of them. The other one goes in, the next big rate increase goes in January billing. And look, if I don't know, they said something about wanting to do another rate study, but we've already done one. We feel like that the rate increases, the 3 big ones we've already had, will be enough money to take care of the depreciation and operation of this new plant. If it's not, there's nothing else the city can do but go up a little more, you know. But real drastically bad, we need to go ahead on this because we're way into that 2 to 10 year estimate that EPA gave us on this contaminant getting into the wells we're using now. And this is 6 years later, and we're no closer to having a long-term fix for this than we were then. And I'm pretty much begging here. We need to go ahead and get going on this.
So,
we've done
Mayor,
what,
thank you very much. Let me, I'm going to now describe to the board kind of what the staff recommendation is, summarize what the mayor said, and then we'll address questions to the mayor if that's amenable to the board. So essentially, where we're at right now is there is an outstanding board order that says that the city's utility cannot undergo any capital projects or attain any more debt unless there is express approval from the Water and Wastewater Financing Board. So the mayor is essentially seeking approval to go through with the construction of this new water treatment plant in fear that the contamination will spread to the current water supply and they're going to have severe issues from that. Further, in terms of the rates, they are going through some of the rates implementations that were suggested. However, from our standpoint is whenever those rates were created, it didn't take into account the creation of this new plant. If what the mayor is stating is completely 100% accurate and the numbers are way different because the depreciation was wrong, then the rate study was done under, just a completely different world. So we need a new rate study to verify that the numbers are right, because the mayor might be completely correct and these numbers are fine. They might be too high or too low. We don't know because they were done under potentially false numbers or different numbers. So with that is where we're at. Now we'll take time for some board questions and then we'll move into the staff recommendations and go from there. Mr. Redwine, I did see your hand.
Yes, thank you. First off, is the water that's being supplied to the utilities customers, does it meet all Safe Drinking Water Act standards currently?
Yes, sir.
Is that documented somewhere?
Yeah, with all the testing.
And the second question.
I'd be writing an order on them if they weren't.
Second question, where does utility stand in terms of pursuit of the responsible party with respect to this TCE contamination?
I couldn't hear you, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't hear everything.
I apologize. Where does the city stand with respect to pursuing the responsible party and recovering damages and increased costs for the incurred on account of the TCE contamination?
We're in a lawsuit with them right now, sir.
My concern is, how does this get around them not buying water from Friendship Water Company? I mean, they can't hook up to countywide because of the lawsuit. But how does the city putting in wells still get around that issue?
We're, look, to be honest with you, there was they had a shallow well at their well farm. And in the late 80s, when they first started testing for the VOCs like they do now, they come up with a positive on tetrachloroethylene then. So they shut that well down and started using 2 deep wells that they had that were full of course, they were full of iron, and we've had to treat for that. But I'll just be honest with you, our city board got aggravated with them because we have tried to get them to move wells away from that as the years have progressed and the internet's gotten better. We have studied that tetrachloroethylene, and they have too. And it's almost a sure thing it was going to get into those deeper wells because the stuff's heavy. It never quits working. It's a cleaning solvent and they made no effort to try to make things safer for us. And then when the contaminant showed up in those deep wells, they come to us, oh, it might hurt somebody, but probably won't, and all that stuff. And to be honest with you, we just don't trust them to buy water from them anymore.
So
I understand that, but the hottest sample that was pulled was almost 800 parts per billion with the MCL at 5. So it's grossly contaminated.
And so the question was, Mayor, how does the construction of this plant and new wells stop you from purchasing the water from the Friendship Water Company? How does this solve the problem?
Our city attorney is here. She knows more about where we are in the lawsuit than I do. She may answer that question. This is Carol Austin. She's our city attorney.
Obviously, there's a potential that the other side of the lawsuit could seek an injunction to try to stop that. They have attempted to do that previously, and at this point, the judge has not been inclined to stop the board from using their own wells at this point. So this would again just be the city using their own wells. It's a contractual, it goes to interpretation of contractual agreement. And to be frank, it's going to be a long lawsuit. We don't envision that this lawsuit will be concluded for several years to come.
The sad thing is the contract says that the Williamses will provide you water in its natural state. Tetrachloroethylene is not natural. I know you can ask.
That's our position.
Get 6 answers, but that's always bugged me.
That's our position in our litigation, but unfortunately, they are entitled to pursue the litigation, and we don't foresee that being concluded in the near future, but we also don't contemplate. Of course, judges can decide, nobody can predict what a judge will decide, but we don't contemplate that a judge would issue an injunction to stop the city from providing clean water to its citizens at this point. I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Ma'am.
The standard remedy in these kinds of cases, in my experience, is either provide bottled water, some other source of water, essentially. And the quickest, easiest source seems to be the interconnection route to provide that other source of water. I would,
the judge has issued an injunction against them doing that.
I would like to see the staff recommendation implemented to make sure that all the alternatives are studied and that the one alternative that is not necessarily going to provide a permanent solution is implemented prematurely. So I would move the staff recommendation be approved.
I've got a question. Okay. It's my understanding that it's this desire to use the ARP funding that's been appropriated to Crockett County.
Right.
The deadline for that funding application was November the 1st. I assume that that was submitted. And if so, you shake your head, yes, Mayor. So if you're not unable to proceed with that project, will those funds be forfeited?
I don't know if we'll lose them. They're not going to give us any more. And there's two problems with hooking up to countywide water now. One is it is going to cost almost $1 million more that the county, between the city and the county, we can't come up with that much extra money. Another thing is their large plant is 10.5 miles from us. And for them to be able to supply us with water will take a lot of money being spent to upgrade their plant. Also, they held up for about a year. They were planning on extending a water main about 1 mile from their plant toward us to take care of some new customers out there. And they held up for about a year because if we were going to hook up to them, it's going to take a 10-inch main because of the distance. And well, they've already went to bid on and have a contractor, and they're only going to put in a 6-inch line. So we're pretty much out of that. That plan has already been, they've marked that off for us. I mean, we're pretty much stuck with, we're going to have to get out of this on our own. We have an opportunity to do it without having to go into debt. And engineers feel safe with us being that far away from the contaminated area, with us spending the money to build the plant there. There have been some other cities in West Tennessee have been hit with this same contaminant.
Mayor Burnett, we're going to move on to the staff recommendations now. We really appreciate the input that you've given forth, because it was evaluated and taken into account into the staff recommendation. So we are going to move to the staff recommendation now, which board is, we have a few things that we're doing here. The first thing that we're doing is we're taking every order that we put to Friendship before. We're pretty much saying, okay, we're getting rid of those and we're just going to move into this one order now, because it's been difficult working through what is still active in all the previous orders. So with that being said, we're going to retain that Friendship is not able to enter into any capital projects or assume any debt from those capital projects until they receive the express consent of board staff. You're giving me the ability to say yes or no on certain of those projects. And really what board staff will be looking into is that engineers are being considered, that they're feasible plans, that the money is there, and it all makes sense. So you're giving us the ability to operate on the board's behalf for that. We're going to require them to enter into another rate study. Like I said earlier, we're not sure if the numbers that were used before are completely accurate at this point, so they need to be verified moving forward, especially if they enter into this next capital project. Further, the January 31st deadline for the contractor who's going to be doing the work in that rate study paragraph, July 31st for them to send us the complete rate study and proof of implementation, along with a few more caveats. Is one, they can't lower their rates. I know that they don't intend to. This is really just making sure that it's clear. They can't lower the rates until this rate study is completed. They one of the previous requirements of the board orders is that they were going to enter into a meter replacement program, that they just continue following that. They've been doing a good job so far of replacing the meters as they can. And last is, I'm going to, board staff. If you would please keep your mic muted, that would be great. We're going to create a form for them to provide updates to us regarding what is going on with the litigation for Friendship and the Friendship Water Company. So all that is the staff recommendation. I do believe that this is the best way forward. I do believe that in the long run, Friendship can't continue to operate a utility. I think looking to someone like countywide utility district is necessary in the long run, but we can't pursue that because of the active litigation. So I think right now, this is really the only way forward. And board staff is comfortable with the recommendation as.
We've got a motion, correct?
We do.
I'll second it. And I'd also like to say TDEC is the same way, that we think they need to get out of the water business. They're just too small to be economical.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendation.
Ma'am, one more point. I'm still concerned about the forfeiture of those ARP funds, and you start talking about timing. Would it put anyone in too much indisposition or bind if we shorten that window of the rate study?
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, because I'm afraid if we stretch that over 6 months and those funds have to be spent by 24, that may really put them in a situation that they lose it. If they are allowed to do it, I'm just saying.
So I got a question. So in the rate study, the decision be made what they can do, because I've got the same concern you do, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do a rate study till they figure out how to fix the problem. So are they going to build the plant? Are they going to do all that? Or is there something with countywide?
So I will offer that board staff isn't going to
For
be
the A
looking,
kind of thing.
yeah, we're not going to be looking to the rate study as whether they can do this project. We're going to operate under the auspices that they can afford it with the rates that have been currently projected, because the rates that were previously used were based on certain capital projects that were going to be necessary to hook on to countywide. So there was excess capital that was being considered. So board staff is currently under the impression that this has to happen and the rates are going to get figured out. So as far as needing to extend the window, I'm happy to. I don't think it's going to be necessary because we're not going to wait to approve until after the rate study. We're essentially going to say, yeah, we can go ahead and move forward with it as soon as we see the engineering reports saying that it's good. And we're also going to check with TDEC to make sure that TDEC is good with them moving forward. But so it's really, let's get the project done or approved now, and then the rate study will fall behind that if that is amenable.
Any other discussion on the motion and the second? Before we have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendations on the City of Friendship, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
All right, Mayor Burnett, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate your input and everything you had to say. If there's anything else you require from us as board staff, feel free to let us know. I'm sure that we will be in communication soon. So now we are moving to the City of Galloway on page 46 board. City of Galloway is a fairly typical financial distress case. Sent them the questionnaire. They returned it, and we're just asking them to complete the rate study with the other requirements as seen in the staff recommendation, followed through with those same board dates and an extension provision.
Make a motion to accept the recommendation. I'll second that.
There is a motion and a second to accept board recommendations for the City of Galloway. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes on City of Galloway.
All right, next we are at the town of Gleason on page 48. Gleason is another one of those instances of just severely delinquent audits. However, I have been speaking with the mayor in the past, and the mayor is committed to, and the town, they're committed to moving the utility forward and pretty much putting all of this delinquency behind them. I'm pretty confident that the town is going to comply with any of the directives of the WWFB. one of the issues right now is they still are a little delinquent on their audits, and we're waiting for those to be caught up, but I don't, I believe that they're on the right path and this will be remedied sooner rather than later. So with that, it is your typical rate study recommendation with review of some fees and policies and the normal deadlines with an extension. The reason there, I will say the one difference is here we're asking for the ability to give 2 extensions. And the reason for that is a lot of it is going to come down to the audit. And if the audit's not ready, you know, who knows if a rate study can be completed. And so that's pretty much why there's 2 extensions. I really don't believe it's necessary. I'm just being overly cautious here. I do believe that those audits are going to be squared up soon, and we'll be able to get this rate study through.
I'll move to we accept the staff recommendation.
Would like to add as possibly just they would update their progress on the audit. Nothing, just let you guys know where they are on the progress of their audits.
What kind of deadline would you like for that? Because we could tie it into the January 31st deadline. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yes, all it is, just let you know that they're progressing and just let them know where you are on that.
We need a
I
motion.
think we need a new motion for that.
I'll make a motion that we amend. Motion.
Second. All right.
Seth, for clarity there, that was a motion to amend paragraph 2 or by January 31st to include the original language, but also an update regarding their audit timeline to reach compliance with their audit submissions.
We have a motion and a second for the staff recommendations for the town of Gleason. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, moving right along to the town of Gordonsville. Gordonsville is one of our typical financial distress cases board, in which we are asking them to get a rate study completed, and those are the normal deadlines with the authority to grant one extension of up to 6 months. I will say the one interesting thing there, if you look in the staff summary, is when we looked at the questionnaire, there was kind of a weird discrepancy between the customer counts that they offered. I don't really know why. So we're just asking for the rate study to also review those customer counts and give us a better idea of what size of system we're dealing with.
I make a motion, we accept the recommendation.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations on the city of Gordonsville. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, moving along to the city of Grand Junction. So Grand Junction is a financial distress case as well. However, they have not, as of whenever this was generated up to 2 weeks ago, they hadn't submitted their 2021 audit, I believe. So this is another issue of the audit problem. And then, so this is a staff recommendation for a rate study with the review of certain policies and procedures, including a justification for the inside and outside city limit rates, just making sure that those seem somewhat reasonable, the regular deadlines, and then the extension authority given there. I'm willing, since we're dealing with an audit issue again, I'm willing to amend the staff recommendation now to also reflect in the January 31st deadline to give us an update regarding the audit timeline, if you all would make a motion to and yeah.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion, staff recommendation as amended.
Second.
We have a motion to accept the staff recommendation as amended for the city of Grand Junction. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Moving on to the town of Henning on page 86. This is very similar to the last one. However, Henning does have somewhat of history with financial problems, in my opinion. So once again, we're not waiting to do the questionnaire. We just want to get people in there to figure out what's going on. Still looking at a delinquent audit. So as board staff, I changed my recommendation in paragraph 2 to reflect an update regarding the audit and when we can expect compliance. This staff recommendation also includes the extension, 2 extensions, not 1, because of the delinquency of audits. Once again, this is really for flexibility of whoever is contracted to do the work. It's not really flexibility for the city. And last, there is the language for subpoena authority from board staff in case the town is not complying with our directives.
Make a motion, we accept the staff recommendations.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendations for the city of Henning. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, moving along to page 87, the town of Hollow Rock. Once again, another normal financial distress case. They sent us the questionnaire back. This entity also indicated water loss issues in its annual information report. And so there is the same information as required for the other water loss cases that they send us an update regarding their plan to address their water loss, because they did send us back their AWWA submission. So with that, board looking for a motion.
We accept the staff recommendation.
Second.
Newman's on a hot streak.
Hey.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendations for the town of Hollow Rock. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, moving to the town of Linville. Linville is an interesting case, board. They were deemed financially stressed a decent while ago, which is why there is an outstanding order against them. Since that has occurred, the Comptroller's Division of Investigation has since released an investigative report regarding prior officials of the city, which has played a huge part in audit delinquency, so on and so forth. With that, we're wanting to simply just extend the previous deadlines of the last order, just so they get that stuff done, because there were issues in completing that order because of what was going on with the division, the investigation.
I'll make a motion that we approve staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendations on the town of Linville. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Moving on to the town of Toon. Toon is another instance in which they had severely delinquent audits. They are financially distressed. Personally, I've seen kind of a turnaround in the attention Toon is now playing to the outside world. Before, I would really try to get a hold of them and I could not. But that's really no longer the case. They're doing much better. From my understanding, they're working a lot more with MTAS as well, which has been beneficial. So with that, we find it very important that they get a rate study done, because they are financially distressed, given some of their late filed audits and similar dates. And we have the authority to give an extension.
Make a motion, accept the staff recommendation.
So,
We have a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations on the town of Toon. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, we're on page 117 with the Tullahoma Utility Authority. This is a pretty straightforward financial distress case. We're just seeking a rate study, similar dates, and the extension authority for this one. They had a questionnaire, they returned it timely. I don't see any issues here.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve staff recommendations for the Tullahoma Utility Authority. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, now we're going to shift gears out of financial distress cases and move to our two investigations. The first one being the town of Mason, which a brief summary and recommendation can be found on the page 132. Mason is currently under an order from the WWFB to meet certain deadlines to get a rate study and the review of a bunch of policies. To my knowledge, they have since engaged TAUD to get the rate study done. They're working through it. I don't have a doubt that they're getting all of that work done. I will note that the town has recently elected a new mayor, which will be starting in December. The mayor seems pretty on board with working with the WWFB and complying with its directives, so I don't have any cause for concern there. However, since the last meeting of the WWFB, they have been awarded, I believe, honestly, I'm kind of waiting to hear exactly what is going on with it, but they were potentially awarded a community development block grant to run a line extension to pick up some new customers. And apparently that will also put them in a really good position to pick up future customers. Because if you're not aware, Mason is in kind of the hot zone for the Blue Oval City. And I do expect to see some growth there. So I think that this project will be worth it in the long run from what I've heard. We're just seeking an update from them regarding that project to see, where they're at with it. Have they gotten that project done, so on and so forth. And we're still waiting to receive the other order requirements from the town of Mason. Does anyone have any questions regarding our current investigation? There really hasn't been anything new since we last met with the town. Mr. Hampton?
I know for the city side, during the last meeting, that they were required to make regular payments. So they are currently still meeting that requirement that the comptrollers have for the city.
Yeah, I was going to see. Oh, there's Steve. Yeah. So Mr. Steve Osborne with Assistant Director of Local Government Finance, or Ms. Sheila Reed. I didn't see you back there behind the column, Sheila. She's the Director of Local Government Finance. We can provide an update regarding that, Steve.
Yes, and to the board, they are making all of their payments on time. We've received the last payment. The next one is due in 2 or 3 days. We should receive confirmation middle of next week.
Okay, well, that's at least a positive, right?
It is a positive. Yeah, so we're pretty optimistic moving forward.
Accept the staff recommendation.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
All right. Next, we are on page 136 for the city of Spencer. So there has been a little bit more movement since the last update with the WWFB for the city of Spencer. A few notes here is last month-ish, it's in your packet. Not too long ago, they approached the Warren County Utility District to say, hey, we need help running our water treatment plant. And that was a really good step. It is board staff's opinion that the only path forward for the city of Spencer's utility is for Warren County Utility District to be the utility in the area for the drinking water utility. That is board staff stance. And I'm going to say it's going to be pretty difficult to convince us otherwise. We 100% trust that Warren County Utility District is equipped to run the utility, that they're able to, they have the staff to do it. As a matter of fact, in response to Spencer's request for help from Warren County Utility District, Warren County Utility District responded. And I received that response yesterday, and I printed it out for everyone to review, in which their response was, in a nutshell, we'd love to help, but we're not going to do anything outside of knowing we're going to take you over in the long run. Board staff believes that is the only path forward for the citizens of Spencer, not to mention a decent chunk of the Spencer customers aren't citizens. They live outside the city limits. So it really is just in the best interest when you're looking to the customers of the utility for them to provide, give the assets to Warren County Utility District and for them to work that out together. So at this point, board, and the other thing is there is in the crowd today representatives of the city of Spencer. There has recently been a new mayor elected, and if I believe she's being sworn in tonight. And so that is very exciting for the city. Looking forward to see whatever direction the city will go from there. Pretty optimistic about it. But in short, the staff recommendation is we want an update by the end of February, February 28, 2023, for an update regarding working with surrounding utilities to figure out a solution for the city's utility. Because we think that this is something that needs to be decided somewhat quickly, but I understand doing due diligence and working on it. So we think February, the end of February is a good idea to get an update regarding that. The other side of it is an annual information report. The city of Spencer showed water loss issues, which is why that in that February update as well, we just need a plan to improve their non-revenue water and validity score, as was seen through their AWWA submission. So with that, board, open to any questions y'all might have, but that is where we're at with City of Spencer.
EDEC would agree with you that it's better for another entity to take them over, for sure. Solve some of the issues they've got.
Sure.
I wholeheartedly support the Warren County acquisition. My question is, like, you do have a sewer system. How's that going to impact your sewer system without the water customer base?
And I'm gonna step up here so I can talk to all of you, so. Carrying a big book around.
Yeah, right.
That's our WIN grant, final document that we submitted to TDEC in response to trying to figure out a way to get more water up there to Spencer. Water, not only more volume, but better quality too. But to answer your question, Mike, specifically, Anthony and I have been discussing, this for a very long time, since probably 2016, in fact. And as of right now, the stance of Warren County Utility District is that they want to assume the assets on the water side. But I am working with Jim Marshall, and we're expecting that by the end of December to have an analysis based on both the water and the sewer of the rates to see what impacts that they would have to Warren County Utility District customers and just City of Spencer customers, or former City of Spencer customers, however that plays out. So hopefully by the end of December, it looks like that's going to kick down the road to February. As far as everything else that was in the order, as we understand it, we've been able to get the majority of that information passed through from Jackson Thornton. The rate study that we've had go forward, Jackson Thornton said that the rate study that we had back from 2020 is still working, still works for us because we had outlaid a big capital expense into the future. And so I believe Jim has been in contact with you, and with respect to the number of years that we spread that over, we're looking at potentially spreading that over 2 years. And the recommendation, I believe, from you guys is that as long as Jackson Thornton or third party can do that to move forward with that rate increase, then that's the step that Spencer is recommending.
On the sewer rates themselves.
On water and
The water and sewer both.
that would be on both for right now, because it obviously, even if there is a decision that Warren County takes them over, it's understood that that's going to take a pretty long period of time to get to happen. Several years, I would imagine.
Has Jackson Thornton, have they done an alternate study to see what the sewer rates would look like without the water customer base?
They haven't. That's what we're talking about doing by the end.
Okay, just make sure I understand that.
Yeah, that's it. And just to let you know too, we submitted and we're ranked third on the state revolving loan priority ranking list for our intake project that we're talking about. That's what both Van Buren County and the City of Spencer have allocated their ARP funding to. And we will also be requesting, if something can move through with the utility district, we'll be also requesting funds for that joint venture allocation that will be coming up for the competitive portion of the ARP next year.
Are there any legal issues with a utility taking over a city?
I mean, keep in mind, I ain't no attorney. But,
No, I know a utility can take over another utility, but I was curious if there would be
no,
any snag.
there's legal issues if, you know.
I've done it.
Yeah, I mean, not really. They just kind of work it out on their own.
Okay, that's fine.
So with that board, that is where we stand with the city of Spencer. And I'm open to a motion for the staff recommendation.
Make a motion to accept staff recommendations.
Second,
We've got a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations for the ongoing investigation of the city of Spencer. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, next I kind of just want to lump all these, I'm not lump, I'm going to move through them pretty quick because they're pretty straightforward. These entities are, starting on page 144. They are the utilities that were required in the past to get rate studies completed, and they did, and they sent them back to us. There's a handful. We just need to make sure they implemented the recommendations from that rate study. So what we're asking here for the cities of Collinwood and Lobelville, so on and so forth, which I will run through, I'm just kind of explaining it now. We're just wanting to make sure that they implemented everything, and then we're going to put them into the update cycle. I will add one caveat to this. This is kind of a verbal amendment to the board packet. One thing I printed out for everyone is the rate study for the city of Erin. I would like to add errands to kind of this idea of we just need to see that they implemented the rates or have a plan to implement the rates, because for the example of the city of Erin, I believe that they were recommended to implement those starting July 1, 2023. So we just need to see that they went ahead and passed something to say, starting on July 1, that those rates will take effect, and then we're just going to place them into the update cycle. So I think that the best way to handle this is just start right now with Erin, because I just described it to you. Look for a motion to approve the staff recommendation that we adopt the deadline of wait for it, January 31st, 2023, to provide board staff with proof of implementation of the recommendations from the TAUD rate study, along with putting them into the update cycle.
I'll make a motion, we go with staff recommendation.
We've got a motion and a second for the city of Erin to put them into the update cycle. All in favor? Second? Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, moving on to the city of Collinwood, which is on the page of 144. Same thing, we want to see them implement all of the recommendations and then place them into the update cycle. I will add to this one board, Wayne County also has a water system in which there was an original plan for Wayne County to get out of the water business by giving the respective parts of the system to the cities of Clifton, Waynesboro, Collinwood, and I'm probably missing one.
And they're already providing the water.
Yes, and we, finally, the city of Collinwood has agreed to take on the assets from the county. So after that goes through, the Wayne County will be officially out of the water business, which is great because they are a case under the board right now for financial distress. It's a financial disaster, and I really commend all of the cities out there, including the city of Collinwood, for agreeing to take on their respective parts of the system and helping out the entire community, because that's what public service is about. So with that being said, seeking a motion and a second to follow the staff recommendation for the city of Collinwood.
second,
Got a motion and a second to accept staff recommendation for the city of Collinwood. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, page 180, the city of Lobelville, same thing. They got a rate study done, and they implemented the rates. So we're just asking to put them into the update cycle. With the caveat on this one, in their annual information report, they did indicate that they have out of compliance with water loss requirements. So by February 28th, they need to show us that they have a plan to address their water loss.
Make a motion to take the staff recommendations.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to accept staff recommendations for the city of Lobeville. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Page 217, the city of Puryear, in which they had a rate study done, implemented, and we are looking to add them to the update cycle.
Make a motion, we accept the staff recommendation.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to accept staff recommendations for the city of Puryear. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Page 240, the town of Rutledge. We are seeking by January 31st, 2023, the entity shall provide board staff with the proof of implementation of the rate study recommendations. I will say this, board, prior to this board meeting, I had correspondence with the town in which they showed a potential ordinance that they were going to pass for the rate study that was not reflective of the TAUD rate recommendations. However, I think that issue has been corrected. So we're giving them the opportunity for everyone else to just send us that they're going to do recommendations from the rate study and not anything less.
Accept the staff recommendation.
Second.
A motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations for the town of Rutledge. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Right, town of Trimble. Trimble had a rate study done. We're just wanting to make sure it got implemented 100% and adding them to the update cycle.
Make a motion to accept the staff recommendations.
And a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations for the town of Trimble. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Page 293, the town of Van Leer, looking to see implementation and adding them to the update cycle.
Make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations for the town of Van Leer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Well, that takes care of the regular business pretty much, other than we need to establish when I get to see y'all next year. So the dates that I have offered are March 23rd, 2023, August 24th, 2023, and November 16th, 2023. Pretty convenient. We have the majority of y'all here. We're really only missing one member, but he hasn't told me of any issues potentially with those dates. So does anyone have any issues with the dates that have been provided? Yes, March 23rd, 2023, August 24th, 2023, and November 16th, 2023. Yeah. Keep in mind, and y'all are probably aware, we normally end up canceling one because we're required to have two, and there's no point in just having a really short meeting at some point during the year if we can just kick that to another meeting. So then I might as well. Mr. Redwine, were you about to say something?
Oh, I was
okay.
going to say, I move we accept staff recommendations as to meeting dates.
A second.
Got a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendations for our 2023 meeting dates. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right.
One quick request, can you send us all calendar invites as soon as possible? So we can
Absolutely. I will
lock down.
get that tomorrow.
Also, on the Spencer order, I'd like to get a copy of it.
They do that as well. So at the end of the meeting, normally there's the time if anyone has anything else they'd like to address. If y'all have any,
I got a request.
sure.
Barring another pandemic, is there any way that, unless there's extenuating circumstances, that we could require utility representatives to appear in person?
I,
I'm not going to limit my disdain for virtual meetings, but I'm sick of virtual meetings and it's the difficulties we've experienced today. I appreciate you folks coming in, but can we ask them to appear in person in the future?
So here's my take on it, is this board doesn't have a requirement to allow a representative to speak on behalf of the utility at our board meeting.
Okay.
So if the requirement to address the board is that you come in person, I think if we were to do that, I don't really see an issue with us sharing that with utilities. I think it's fair to say, like, barring extenuating circumstances, if they're on their way and, just put it.
In my experience, the further away they are from Nashville, the more of a penalty it is to make them come down here.
Well,
It's a
but
hammer.
As board staff, I have no issue with enforcing that if that's the desire of the board.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Cool. No, well, in future meetings, anyone who wants to address, will definitely share that with them. I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else got anything? All right.
All right, I think we have completed our agenda for the day. It's been a pleasure. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion to adjourn in second. All in favor? No opposition. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone online, for joining. See y'all next time.